إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور من أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتون إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا والنساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وخير الهدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار اللهم نسألك العفو والعافية منهما آمين اللهم آمين. Indeed, countless blessings belong to Allah at all times. At all times. In the few moments that we have in this obligatory moment, we want to spend a few moments, especially as we find ourselves in the last few days of this month of Rabi al-Awwal. We want to talk about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I must admit that I'm inadequate. I'm inadequate to talk about this noble character. I'm inadequate, but we will make an attempt to share with you some of the things that we find in the Quran and the Hadith concerning him. Allah Ta'ala, He reminds us when He says, and I seek refuge in Allah from our enemy, the shaitan. The shaitan is our enemy. The shaitan is, we are not enemies of one another. The shaitan is our enemy. We treat him as our enemy. Allah Ta'ala, He says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Allah also says about this noble character, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَا أَتَاكُمْ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. And these three ayats, right, scattered throughout the Quran. We just picked these. There are a plethora of ayats that speak about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We selected these. Allah says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And we have only sent you as a rahmah for all of the worlds. Brothers and sisters, if we are not in tune with this rahmah from Allah, this is something special from Allah. And that's why the Prophet Muhammad is special, because Allah sent him as a rahmah for all of the worlds. We've talked about this in the past, just very short and briefly. I'm not going to go into detail about this. The gap between Isa alayhi salam and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, approximately 500, maybe 600 years gap. What happened in this gap? Nothing. Nothing happened. The communication to the human being from Allah ceased. It stopped. Oh Allah, thank you for giving us life again. It stopped. No communication from the sama, from the heavens, to this dunya, none whatsoever. And we take for granted because we can go and grab a mushaf, we can see what Allah says, we can see some old, the scriptures from old. We take it for granted. But the people had no idea for nearly 600 years what had happened, especially to Isa alayhi salam. They didn't know. This is why they made up and conjured up things, what happened to him, who he was. SubhanAllah, if we only knew the value of this man Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this, Allah says in this ayah, and we have only sent you as a rahmah to all of the worlds. This distinction is given to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Special. This rahmah is special. We come to this word again. Allah also says about him in the next ayat that we're using. Allah says, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. And most definitely you, Muhammad, you stand on a great character. You have in you a great character. For those people who think that following the sunnah is only about putting on some clothes and some garb, we are far off the mark. It's about our character, how we treat one another. This is the essence of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he treated people. Those, meaning those people who believed and those who did not believe. He didn't mistreat anyone. Muslim, non-Muslim, mu'min, non-mu'min. He didn't treat anyone. He didn't treat a creature, something that Allah created, he didn't mistreat it. This is the great character of this man Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not about the dress. The dress is a facade. It's not real. What's in the heart? Character. Allah says about him, indeed you are upon a great character. You have in you a great character. And then Allah says in the next ayah that we use, Allah says, and whatever the messenger has given you, then you should adopt it. Right? Take it. فَخُذُّهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. And whatever he has said, avoid, stay away from. Then stay away from it. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, and have taqwa of Allah. Part of the thing about when we read the Quran, we need to ask ourselves, why do Allah say certain things at certain times in certain places throughout the Quran? Why? Whatever the messengers give, you take it. Whatever he has said, avoid wattaqullah, and have taqwa of Allah. There's a connection. You and I need to find out what that connection is. What connection is there to following what the Prophet said and avoiding what he said and having taqwa of Allah? And then Allah finished this ayat off by saying, Inna Allah, indeed Allah, shadidul iqab. Verily Allah is severe in punishment. What's the connection? There's a connection. There's a connection. But because we're so accustomed to just reading through the Quran, just to get through the cover, just to get the Surah Nas, we miss it. There's no what we call tadabbur. There's no contemplating. Why is Allah saying this? Why? There's a reason. There's always a reason why Allah has said something to us. Why He is saying something to mankind. These aren't just words. They have meaning and purpose. And not knowing the Arabic language is not an excuse. Not knowing the Arabic language is not an excuse for contemplating what Allah says. If you don't know Arabic, learn it. If you don't know Arabic, learn it. It is obligatory to learn Arabic language so you can understand the words of Allah. It is obligatory. The Prophet ﷺ, he said in a hadith narrated by the companion Abu Hurairah Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayhi, and when he says that the Prophet ﷺ says that Kullu ummati yadkhuluna jannah illa man aba. Right? Everyone from my community will enter into Jannah. Oh Allah, make us people, the community of Muhammad ﷺ. Make us part of this community. Illa man aba. Except that persons, except he or she who refuses. قِيلَ مَنْ يَدَعْ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. The companions, when they heard this, they couldn't believe it. Who would refuse entry into paradise? Who? The companions, they were dumbfounded. I ask you as I ask myself. I challenge you as I challenge myself. After living in this dunya, after living in this world, going through what we go through, do we want to end up in the wrong place? After all of this struggle, and not to end up in paradise? What a waste. What a waste. Not to earn paradise. Not to be granted. Allah has given us a ticket to paradise, brothers and sisters. Everyone from the Ummah of Muhammad will go to paradise, he says. Everyone. Everyone except those people who refuse. And then he said, who would refuse? Who? Who would refuse entry into paradise? Then the Prophet he said, Man ata'ani dakhala jannah. Whoever obeys me enters paradise. Woman asani dakhala, that's the one who abah. Faqad abah, he says in the hadith. Right? So the one who disobeys me, right? They follow, they don't want to, because we're going to talk about this, because there's a segment of Muslims, and I can't even call them Muslims. There's a segment of people in the community who believe that there's no need, that it's optional to follow in the Prophet. It's a myth. It's not true. We're not understanding the book of Allah correctly. Following the Prophet is not optional. It is obligatory. You bring the ayat. Because they don't follow hadith, so you can't say bring the hadith. Bring the ayat that says that following the Prophet is optional. What we don't get in America is we don't get this class called usul, fundamentals, the foundation of Islam. And in usul, we learn that a command, Allah says, فَكُلُّهُ is a command. And in order for that command not to be implemented, there must be something telling you that, no, we don't have to do it. And there is none. There is none. Commands are meant to be obeyed. Prohibitions are meant to be obeyed. This is the foundation. This is usul. Not what we think. Not what we want. Because this is our desires now. And we all have different desires. We all have different needs and wants. And until all of our needs and wants, we have to obey what Allah says. And Allah says, follow the messenger. Follow the Prophet says. Allah said it. Not Khalifa, not the Imam. But Allah says it. Follow him. There's not an ayah that says that will tell us anything different. I don't care how we translate it. I don't care what there's not an ayat that tells us anything different. I ask you as I ask myself, from where do we learn to do everything we do in our deen? Think about it. Everything we do in our deen is based on what this man Muhammad did. Everything. How he made takbir. How he stood in the salah. Whether you put the hands up or leave them down. How he bowed. How he went down into sajda. Everything about the salat is based on the Prophet. The way he fasted. How do we learn these things? Going to the bathroom, the istinja. From who taught us this? From where did we get it from? And we think that the sunnah is optional. We think the sunnah is optional. La ilaha illallah. Ya ikhwa. The sunnah is obligatory on us. It's not optional. It is not optional. Wallahi. Wallahi, wallahi. People who don't follow the sunnah, people don't follow hadith, they're not Muslims. From where did they get the Quran? Where did they get the Quran if they don't follow hadith? Where did they get it from? We only have Quran because of hadith, because of the statements of Allah's messenger. That's how we have Quran. from Al-Fatiha to An-Nas. From where did we get it then? Where did we get the practices we do? The division of the salawat, the fajr. Put fajr this time, put dhuhr that time, asri that time, maghrib that time, isha that time, the rakats. Some out loud, some sound. Where did we get it from? From where? None other than from the Sunnah of Allah's Messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is where we got it from. We didn't come up with it on our own, and then all of a sudden, everybody on the same page. No, because Allah blessed this man to be on a great character. This is who we got it from. Allah blessed him, and that's how we have our Islam. And then some of us, unfortunately, want to dismiss as if the Prophet is optional. Someone comes to Islam, they don't just say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, I bear witness there's no God other than Allah. That does not bring you into the fold of Islam. It must be coupled with wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. And Muhammad is the messenger. I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. It must be coupled. This is what brings us into Islam. This is nonsense. Nonsense. This is from the shaitan. This is from the shaitan. Anyone that suggests that following hadith, following the Prophet is not mandatory. This is not like following a madhab. I'm not talking about that. We're talking about the foundation of our deen is on what the Prophet said and did, or what he approved of. This is the sunnah. What he said, what he did, and what he approved of. This is the sunnah. This is Islam. Allah Ta'ala, he says, the famous ayat, the ayat that we use, right? Allah says, Inna Allaha wa malaikatu yusalluna ala nabi, ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. We know the ayat, right? Verily Allah and his malaika yusalluna ala nabi. We're not going to try to get into the thing, how to translate what this actually means, because we don't have that kind of time now. But confer blessings. Allah forgives and sends blessings. The malaika ask Allah to forgive for the forgiveness of Allah's messenger. And then Allah says, "O you who believe, sallimu," another imperative verb. An imperative verb, yadulu ala wujub and usul. It necessitates obligation. Allah says, "O you who believe, O you who believe, you do the same. Confer your salawats on him as well. Confer your salawats on him as well." This is what we're supposed to do. It's not optional. We do it. And then we have a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and said that the Prophet said, "Akthiru as-salat alayya yawm al-jum'ah," right? Increase your salawats on the Prophet on Friday, he said. And we also have in another night, وَاللَّيْلَ الْجُمْعَةِ, and also the night before. Right? The night before, right? So not only on Friday should we be increasing also, but also on Thursday night, the morning, the night before Jum'ah, increase your salat. And then it says, فَمَنْ صَلَّى عَلَيَّ, as the Prophet was saying in the hadith, whoever makes salat on me one time, sallallahu alayhi ashar, Allah will send 10 salawats on that individual. So we don't lose. We don't lose. So Fridays, we should be a time we set aside to increase our salawats, because this should be a daily thing. We have to learn to love the Prophet Muhammad. Learn to love him. Follow him, not just in dress. Not just in dress. Put on a nice looking turban and all that. This is, no. What about the character, the heart? It's about the heart and character. This is what it's about. We ask that Allah Ta'ala make us people who are true to our word and follow the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad as it improves our Islam. أقول هذا أستغفر الله وأتوب إليكم. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala ashraf Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah Ta'ala, he reminds us, and we've closed out, we have a few more points to make. Allah says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. Right? Again, we want to learn to read the Quran but ask yourselves questions. You have in the ayah that says, you have in the messenger an excellent example. For who? Allah answers the question for us. It's a rhetorical question. Liman, for that person who yarjullah, who hopes to meet Allah. That's the person. So Allah says in the ayah that you have in the messenger an excellent example. For who? For that person who hopes to meet Allah and have iman in the final day. وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. Allah says, and remembers Allah much. 3 things. They hope to meet Allah, right, because they do the right thing. May Allah make us people who do the right thing. Okay? They have iman in the last day. We know we're going to die. Get out of this joint here. Get out of this place. And remember Allah much. This is what the Prophet did. Everything he did. He put on clothes. He made a dhikr. He ate. He took a step. He kept his tongue moist with the dhikr of Allah. This is the character we're supposed to be following. This is the character we're supposed to be following. Everything, every movement, make dhikr. Going to sleep. Again, where do we get it from? Whatever we do, where do we get it from? If we don't ascribe it back to the Prophet himself. Right? But we didn't come up with it. What we say when we wake up, when we go to bed, right? Blowing, making the kul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq and kul a'udhu bi rabbin nas. Right? Making asking Allah for protection, reading ayatul kursi. Where do we get it from? This is from the Sunnah. It's not from us. This is from that example, as Allah says, you have in the messenger an excellent example. This is where we got it from. And then we have people who say, oh no, you don't need that. That's not authentic. You believe that the people say hypocrisy says that let food be that. We believe those stories. We have no proof that he said that. But we dismiss what, this is our thinking. We have no proof that hip-hop said that. But we deny what the Prophet said. And scholars, they work, because we don't know, if you don't know what scholarship goes into making sure hadith are valid. True. There are some hadiths that are not valid. But that's why you have scholars to look and investigate, to determine the validity. As we close, ayat Allah says in the Quran, an interesting ayat. I want you to go Surah Al-Ahzab 33. Al-Ahzab, the ayat that speaks Inna Allah wa malaikatu yusalluna, that ayat, that surah, in the same surah, I'm getting ready to refer from that. Go back and look at these ayats when you have time. Allah says in the ayat, in these ayats, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, do what? Udhkurullaha dhikran kathira. O you who believe. O Allah, make us people who have iman. Give us iman. O Allah, allow iman to enter into our hearts. O you who believe. Allah says, Udhkurullaha dhikran kathira. O remember Allah with much. Remember Allah excessively. Allah says in this ayah. Wasabbihuhu, make tasbih. Where did we learn how to say subhanallah from? Bukratan wasil, in the morning and in the evening. And then listen to what Allah says about those people who take on this practice. Huwa alladhi yusalli alaykum wa malaikatuhu liyukhrijakum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. Amin, alum, amin. He is the one who Allah yusalli, Allah confers alaykum, as well as malaikatuhu لِيَخْرُجُكُمْ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ, so that he can extract us, you, from darkness and bring you into the light of Islam. This is what Allah says in his book, by following, taking on this example that we learned from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, making much dhikr, remembering Allah. This is one of the favors. And then finishing the ayat out, وَكَانَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَحِيمًا, that special word again. And to the believers, people of Iman, Allah has a special rahmah, because Allah is Ar-Rahim, which is only for people who follow the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the people of Iman. This is why we have to, Allah make us people of Iman. That rahmah again. How we started out, indeed we have sent you nothing but as a rahmah for the world. You can't get the rahmah from Allah if you're not a believing person. You can't get it. And you only can get the rahmah from Allah, not to say the only way, but what helps is being able to follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah make us people of Iman. And then Allah says, Tahiyyatuhum yawmal yalqawnahu salam. And on that day, when they see him, see Allah, some say, right, it will be salam. Allah, nothing but peace. Nothing but peace. Right? For those people who are curious about Arabic, you will never find, whenever you find greetings in the Quran, you will never find it saying assalamu alaikum. Always salamun. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. Because we say assalam, we put alif and lam, we say assalam. It's specific. But salam in the Quran, which means also peace, in whatever we translate, I'm not certain how we translate peace, I think they say, right? We don't know what it is. It's a surprise from Allah. Whatever it is, it got to be something great and fantastic. Oh, Allah, write this for us. Can you imagine Allah greeting us, greeting you and I, having something prepared for you and I? That's salam. We don't know what it is, what kind of banquet we have no. Subhanallah. That's what Allah has in. So again, it's a reason why Allah says certain things, not just to get words in the book, just to fill up pages. We got to get out of that. Read the Quran so we can get understanding from it. And then Allah says, وَعَدَتْ لَهُمْ أَجْرًا كَرِيمًا. Again, and we have prepared for them ajran. Again, indefinite, no alif and lam. So we have prepared for them an enormous reward. Allah says this in the Quran. And then he says, Ya ayyuhan nabiyyu, inna, listen, Ya ayyuhan, O messenger, O prophet, inna arsalnaka, we have sent you, how? Shahidan, as a witness. Wa mubashiran, and as someone who gives glad tidings. Wa nadhira, and a warner. This is the job of the prophet, and that should be our job. We should be witnesses. People should be able to look at us and, these are people who are a beacon of what they say, what they represent, what they say, that people should say, oh man, he's on it, she's on it, they're on it. That's what they should see when they say, because we should be representing the truth, representing Islam. And then finally Allah says, and also wada'iyan ilallah, and someone who is calling to and be in the process of always inviting to Allah, to the way of Allah. Bi-izni wa sirajan munira, and a light. People should be, why? Because we've been taken out of darkness, Allah says, and we've been put in light, and people should be able to see that in us. We don't have to tell them. They should be able to see that, how we act, how we treat one another. But when we act like people who have not had this gift from Allah, this rahmah from Allah, this Islam from Allah, this Quran from Allah, this hadith, this sunnah from Allah, when we act like non-Muslims who haven't had this, what do we expect? What do we expect? Everyone from his ummah will enter paradise except those people who, right, disobey him, right, who refuse to go into paradise. Okay, and so Allah says, finishing the ayat out, وَبَشِّرْ مُؤْمِنِينَ بِأَنَّ لَهُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ فَضْلًا كَبِيرًا. Again, and announce to the believing people. Again, we have to Allah make us people of Iman. Announce to them that they have from Allah fadlan. Again, that word that don't have alif lam on. Fadlan. Fadlan means that stuff that spills over. That's extra. Extra. kabira. Again, what's from Allah that's extra. Just, subhanAllah. This is Allah. This is Allah. Why? Because if you follow the Prophet Muhammad, we put ourselves in a position to get all of this from Allah and more. Brothers and sisters, it is Friday. Increase your salawat on Allah's messenger. Allah Ta'ala, He says, Inna Allah malaikatu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin innaka Hamidum Majid. If you know anybody that's ill or sick, make sure we make some point to try to visit them or call them up. And also, brothers and sisters, we have to always mention, again, don't leave out of the masjid without making some type of sadaqah. The masjid needs our help. Again, we say this all the time. We have no idea how many people call up and asking for assistance. So if Allah has blessed you and I to be able to help, then help. So, and then that's ajr for us. And this is again part of the example of the Prophet. He had empathy for people, for the human being. He had empathy, and we should learn to care for one another. Iqamah salah.